Hi there, welcome to Floating in Books. This is going to be a book haul. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you saw my recent vlog last week, I asked you the question, what would you like to see first, a book haul or a fashion haul? And everybody was saying a book haul, so that's why you're getting this. I had a quick look on my channel. I haven't done a book haul since September. I very deliberately didn't buy any books towards the end of the year because I just wanted to make sure I got some out of the way. And then I did a little bit of shopping here and there at the start of the year, but I very deliberately didn't buy any books for myself for like a good 2 to 3 months. Because I knew I was going to London and I wanted to pick up most there. So this is a bit of a collective haul of all of the bits that I picked up, not only when I was in London, but in like the past 5 or 6 months or so. So there's quite a lot here, and I do hope you don't mind me having the door open. It is a beautiful day today, but it is a Sunday afternoon. My neighbors are home too, so you might hear things. I have the mic on, so hopefully that can take away most of it. But yeah, let's just talk about these in no particular order whatsoever. So the first deck I have here is some fiction that I think most of this I picked up in February because these were some new releases, so I had to go into the bookstore and I picked up these things in one go. I decided to try my hand at this. This has been making the rounds on TikTok. It's like a romantasy kind of story, Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm not expecting the most of this. We all know whenever books are hyped up on TikTok, I do not tend to like it, but you know, sometimes I'm like, I want to give it a go. It's like a mystery with a bit of magic thrown in, and I do tend to like those from time to time. So, and this was a steal because I think I picked these up online, and I think this was only like a couple of euros. So I was like, for that price, I might as well try it. Now, there's one particular account that I follow from time to time. His name is just Bill, and he was very much raving about this last year. This is S.T. Gibson, A Dowry of Blood. Vampire novels are making a comeback in 2024, and I couldn't be happier because I love myself a vampire novel. And this is really interestingly the binding is really interesting because it has these like staggered edges. So it looks like it was like put together by hand, and this is apparently one of the best vampire novels, according to him, that has come out in recent years. It was one of his favorite reads of 2023, so I decided to pick it up. And a big chunky guy that you know I have already read, because I did already review this for you. This is The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. I read the entire trilogy, and because I liked the book in this, like the second book in the series, quite a bit more than the first one, I had high expectations going into it, but I just didn't really enjoy it that much. If these didn't have pretty covers, they would be instant declutters for sure. I definitely think that sometime this year, I think like Christmas time, I'm gonna have to rejig my shelves and like see if there's anything there. I tend to do it every 2 years or so, because then I feel I've read enough, and then I know what can go and what I would like to stick around. Like, are there any books that have been sitting on my shelves for years that I know I won't get to? That sort of thing. So I think I want to do that before the end of the year, but so far I'm still really enjoying what's on my shelves, and I'm really enjoying some of my reads. This wasn't one of the most successful ones, but hey ho. And then the third book in the Crescent City trilogy from Sarah J. Maas. I have no clue whether this comes with even more books in the series. I think Sarah J. Maas, maybe it's because it's one of the first fantasy authors I really got into, but I definitely have a soft spot for her books. I really enjoyed the Throne of Glass series. I didn't mind ACOTAR as much as I have minded other things that are very fantasy and romance heavy at the same time. So I really can't wait to this. This is a bit more of an urban fantasy kind of setting, which I tend to enjoy a lot. So I have the first 3 books now. So this is a series I need to get to, but these are chunky. So they're a bit like, am I going to get to that? But I had a very chunky series I wanted to finish first, and I want to go and hopefully head into something that's a little bit quicker than what I was currently reading. So this is not one I want to read now, but maybe later in the year, like fall time, it might be a good time for this, or maybe over the winter time. I'm not sure yet, but this is definitely now that I have 3 books in the series, I need to get to it. The next book is something I saw when I was in London, but no way was I going to haul a cookbook with me. Like, as carry-on luggage. I was traveling by train. You have to carry your bags yourself, and this is a hefty one. So I was like, you know what? I can see if they have this online, and they did, and it was just as expensive as it was in Waterstone. So I was like, I might as well. This is by Anna Jones. It's called Easy Wins, and it's sort of centered around these flavors, and then each flavor has its own section of like both savory and sweet recipes, from breakfast to desserts that you could possibly make with it. It's incredibly concisive. I have another cookbook by her. I think it's called A Modern Cook's Year or something like that, or Modern Cooking, something like that. And that's a really nice one as well. But what really sets me off not using that is that not all the recipe come with pictures, and they definitely solved it in this product, in this book, in this new one, because it does have pictures for all of the things, and I had already browsed through, and there are so many things in here that I'd like to make. So yeah, this is definitely one. I still need to put tabs in, but I no longer have any sticky notes that I can use as tabs. That's what I usually do with my cookbooks. Any recipes that really stand out to me, I put a little tab in so that I know what to go for. But yeah, this is a really pretty cookbook. Let me see if I can show you what it looks like inside. Like, not just layout wise, but also like the recipes. It's all like vegetarian, and it's all like very sort of like a modern take on a lot of classics as well. And I like that. And these seem to be pretty easy recipes as well. Like, the first book I have is a little bit more complicated for a weeknight, and these are all recipes that you should be able to throw them together in like 30 to 45 minutes, which I love. Maybe we should get the nonfiction out of the way first. I bought these two. These are by a historian who I follow on TikTok. She trained as a medical doctor, then she also became a historian, and she uses her knowledge from both those fields to talk about death and disease through the ages. It's very entertaining, and she's written 2 books. Her name is Susie Edge, right there. And the first one is called Mortal Monarchs, so it's about kings and queens dying. And then she also did one about vital organs. So this is about like body parts that exploded and people who died of like very serious diseases. So can't wait to read these. I mean, I like her speaking style, the way she presents her stories on TikTok, so I hope that's also in the books. Haven't read these yet. I'm not really in a nonfiction mood at the minute. I can't find these as audiobooks where I live, so that's why I decided to just buy them as physical copies and like get to them at some point. So, random stack number 1. This is one that I did pick up recently. This is one I picked up in London. This is one that I was gonna listen to as a audiobook, but never got round to it, and I was like, I think it would be quicker to read the physical copy. And it's Micah Neverever, I think that's how you pronounce the name. I don't know. And it's called These Violent Delights, and this is about 2 men who meet in college, and one of them has there's something off in their power dynamic, so one becomes completely dependent on the other guy, and that's not a very healthy relationships to be in. So it's about a very unsuccessful, like, violent relationship to be in, and I've heard great things about these books. There are several books with the same title, so if you want to pick it up, make sure you pick up the one from Micah. This is how Americans would write my name, but my name is spelled differently. Maaike is the proper Dutch spelling of it, you could say. It sounds the same, but it's written differently for sure. Then I picked up a classic fantasy / sci-fi author, Ursula K. Le Guin, and this is a book that I've had on my wish list for more than a year. That's how long I was hoping to get this. It's the Earthsea series, which is about like a wizarding school kind of setting. That's all I needed to know. I haven't read anything by Ursula K. Le Guin yet, but she's like one of the most important authors when it comes to sci-fi and fantasy, one of the pioneers of both genres. And so even though this is like I think it was written in like the 60s or like the 50s, so it's an old one, so I'm a bit nervous for it, but this is one that I can get stuck in, and this will definitely stay on my shelves for a while even if I don't read it. This is a book that I've heard very mixed reviews on, but I found this in Paris. I was there in January, and I found this one English, like, very small bookstore, and it was sitting on their like recommended table, and I had heard of this book, but I had heard more negative reviews than I had heard positive reviews. One Dark Window is the title, by Rachel Gillig. There's already a second book out in this series. This is again something that's, I think, vampire-esque. That's what I've heard. It also seems to be like romantasy. That's definitely the thing that is currently really making the rounds, like fantasy mixed with romance in a super dark setting. I just want to I want to dip my toe in. I've definitely found another book on a table in my local bookstore that I was hoping to get. I was like, maybe I should just first get Powerless and this one out of the way to see how I feel about the genre and just see how I feel. But I don't know. It's one that I'm a bit nervous for. I don't think it's going to be completely up my alley. Another book I've already read, Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellers. I already reviewed this one for you as well. I read it while I was on a trip to Valencia. I took this book with me and I read bits and pieces wherever I went. It's about a couple in New York. They are both like, well, he is very rich, she's a bit of a grifter, and it's sort of about their relationship like coming together and them unwinding again, and all the people in their orbit will get sucked in by this relationship. And that sounded like a really cool premise to me, but I felt that especially in the middle of the book it kind of dragged. So there were bits that were really good, but there were also parts where I was like, yeah, this is like every sort of rom-com kind of thing that you can find. So not as special as I'd hoped, but still enjoyable. Then I picked up another book from Mona Awad. This is Rouge. This I haven't read yet, but I read Bunny and I did really enjoy that book. It wasn't a 5-star read for me, but definitely a solid 4-star. And this critiques like beauty standards and the beauty industry. It's about a girl and her mom is like a member of this special club where she has treatments done, which her daughter at first finds ridiculous, but then somehow she gets sucked in, if I remember correctly, and my neighbor has already read it, and she really enjoyed it. She really has been recommending me a lot of Mona Awad, so I wanted to read this one at some point as well. You'll notice, by the way, that there's some fantasy here, but I'm really in my lit fic moment at the minute. So there's a lot more like literary fiction and like detective stories, which is like the next section. Because I got some. Again, one I've already read. Richard Osman's The Last Devil to Die. I've read the entire series so far. If you don't know what the series is about, the first book is called The Thursday Murder Club, and it's about a group of pensioners who retirees, is that how you would call them? And they sort of group together to start solving murders. There's loads of spin-offs and like little like nuggets, and it's very English. It's got dry humor, it's got banter, it's got all the things I love. These are quick, easy reads for me. I see them as palate cleansers. It's definitely not like high-line fiction or anything like that. Nothing to think too deeply about, but something I do really enjoy. And a friend of mine apparently already read this, and she's like, it wasn't my favorite, but it was buy one, get one half price at Foyles when it was in London. So I was like, yeah, I could try that. It's by Rebecca Mackay. That's the author's name. The sticker is covering it. I have some questions for you. And I think it's about a lady whose roommate is murdered. And then this woman starts to solve it years later, I think. Yeah, so it happened in the past, and then she goes back to the school to talk about her work, and then she's like drawn back into the mystery. So sounds interesting. With detective stories, it's quite hit and miss for me. Some I love, some I really don't enjoy, especially if I see the resolution coming really, really easily. And that might be the case with this one. I'm thinking this is sort of like the adult version of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I also felt very predictable, but it could be fun. It could be a nice palate cleanser as well. Like, that's how I tend to use detective novels, as like palate cleansers. And then this one was in the crime section at Foyles. I just really enjoyed the cover here with the gold foiling. It's Kate McCarranas. I hope that's how you say her name. And this is Hokey Pokey. And this is like a locked room mystery where this lady goes to this hotel. Apparently it has a magical realism element as well. And the main character we're following is like a psychoanalyst. So she goes into it with this psychoanalytic kind of way, needing a break from the world, and then a murder happens in this hotel, and then we get the locked murder mystery. So sounds interesting. I don't know anything about it. I just like the cover, and the blurb on the back drew me in, so I decided to pick it up. So before we get into the fantasy stuff, I thought we could finish the Litfic section. I think that's everything. I think everything else I have here is fantasy, and those are like big chunky books, of course. I found this one, I think it was also at Foils that I picked this up. Megan Nolan's Ordinary Human Failings. And this sounded like something I might enjoy. It's set in the 1990s in London. There's a death of a young girl at an estate, and there's one family that is pointed at as being like the cause of this murder. And we follow one of the daughters in that family, I think, and she has to confront her secrets and silences that have trapped her family for so many generations. It's not a thick one, but this could be one, like if it's very like that generational kind of thing, it could be a more complicated read. And it was shortlisted for the Narrow Book Awards, so Cafe Narrow, I think that is. So it sounds interesting. I like reading these kind of books from time to time. It's giving Sally Rooney in some sort of way. Like everybody's comparing everything to Sally Rooney, I feel, but the description kind of feels like something that I can gel with, I think. And this is a book I picked up because I just thought the cover looked really, really cool. It's Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. And again, this is about like a murder in a sorority kind of setting, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1970s. And then we sort of go back and forth between two, like there's a killer involved here as well, but then all these girls, yeah, her friend then goes missing, even though she's moved on. And then she hears about this case in the 1970s, and then she knows what it is, and then she starts to travel to figure out who did it and figure out what happened to her friend. So, sounds like something I might enjoy as well. This bright orange cover that's probably going to be like blown out by the sun within a year, but oh well. It's Eliza Clark's Penance. Eliza Clark wrote another book that is very popular. It's called Boy Parts, which I've heard really good things about. I just picked it up because I like the cover, mainly. But this is about a murder. And a journalist that has decided to write the definitive account, I should say. But is his story actually true? And that's what this book is about. So again, sounds like something I might like. A bit of mystery involved. Unreliable narrator, I think. So we'll see how it goes. And this is a book I picked up because I read a review of it in my local newspaper, Zadie Smith's The Fraud. This is a historical fiction novel. It's set in the late 1900s, where we have a group of people. I think it has to do with like, in Dutch it's called the charlatan, I think. So it's about someone who's like conning people, and there's like people we follow who know about the conning, who don't expose the person, and we also follow the con men, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly what it is about, but I saw it for a pretty good price at my local bookstore and picked it up. And finally, two books by the same author, Alison Rumfitt, Tell Me I'm Worthless and Brainworms. And these were on the horror shelf. And apparently this is like a mixture of like body horror. When I read the blurbs on the back of this, it gave me Monica Awad Bunny kind of vibes. I was like, I like that book. This seems to be cool. There's also, I think, like transgender characters in here. So it feels very now. And it just also feels like something that I might enjoy as well. So, oh, and this one's even signed. And then we have some fantasy. I've got two more stacks left. I only picked up the detective novel because I was like, oh yeah, then I can get this one, maybe half off. Brandon Sanderson's Tress of the Emerald Sea. I want to try more Brandon Sanderson. I'm desperate to love him as much as everybody else does, and I'm thinking this may be a good one. It's got a female lead. It's about pirates. I didn't need to know anything else, but it was a bit expensive, I found, for what it was going for when it was first released, so I definitely waited for it to come out in this smaller paperback version, and then I got it in this buy one, get one half off kind of deal, which I'm I'm not too sad about it if I don't like it, you could say. I picked up the next book in the Jim Butcher Harry Dresden Files series. Blood Rights is the next one that I haven't read yet. What I do with these books, I read a book and then I buy the next one, and then it sits on my shelf sometimes for a year until I start reading it again. I just read one in like February or March, so nothing I need to read anytime soon, but else I like forget which is the next one, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I would like to read one of those books again, and then I don't have it. So I just buy the one that I haven't read yet, so I have it on hand. And then I found out that Genevieve Kaufman has a new series. This is the book Scarlet. Genevieve Kaufman writes one of my favorite fantasy series. It's The Invisible Library. It's like a cozy fantasy with time travel elements in it, a library that saves stories from different realms. We have dragons, we have fae, and I believe this has a vampire in it. So that's the only thing I wanted to know. This is the other book I picked up when I was in Paris in January. So that's where I found it, where I saw it for the first time, and I was glad to see her having a new series. I think the Invisible Library series is now wrapped up. I don't think there will be any new books in that. I have yet to read 2 of the final books in the series. I've read all the other ones. So that's another series I want to like probably finish this year, so we can get to this. And then who knew that we were going to get another book in the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. I really, really enjoy Darker Shade of Magic. It's one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. So when I found this for only 10 euros at my local bookstore, I was very happy. I didn't even read the blurb. I was like, right, it's a continuation of where we've left off with the characters from Darker Shade of Magic, and I would just like to know more about them. It's got Kel, it's got Leela, so it's got a lot of things. But it also has some new characters, apparently. I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't seen anybody reviewing this. I don't know if this is any good. Sometimes with these kind of spin-off things, I can be a bit disappointed, because I'm like, oh, just stick to what's already there. I'd rather reread the series than going back to this. But yeah, if I can revisit that world fresh again, then I would very much want to. So that's why I picked this one up. And this book was also on the table in Paris, but there it was very expensive to pick up, so I decided to get it online instead. It's the again, a romantasy kind of story. It's by Carissa Broadbent, and it's The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which the cover is what made me want to get this. It's again vampires. And that's why I wanted to read it. I've heard dreadful reviews of this, though. It's apparently like, Fourth Wing with Rebecca Yarros last year, where that got super hyped up and then everybody was a bit disappointed with how it went. I personally haven't read that one yet because I don't know. I want the hype to die down before I delve in. May want to do it with this as well, but as I mentioned, 2024, vampires are back. And I want to read it all because I love me a vampire story. Okay? I'm still a twihard somewhere deep down, so. This has gotten a lot of mixed reviews. Apparently, it's got some, horrible scenes. I don't know, a lot of people found it distasteful. That's what I've heard, so I'm buying it for the hype. It's Bride by Ali Hazelwood. It's also about vampires versus werewolf kind of situation where a girl marries a werewolf from a vampire clan to sort of prevent war. But she definitely has her own mind and does a lot of other things as well. So that's all I know about it. I've just heard that this has caused quite a stir. So I'm just not sure if people are just a little bit feeble, you could say, or that it's actually something that is that dreadful. So I can't wait to read it. Another cover buy, you could say, but this one is one I was passing up on every single time. I've been trying to buy this book for 6 months. Over at my local bookstore, this is in the YA section, but in England, it was with the adult books. Don't know. But it's 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I'm really enjoying sort of Asian-inspired fantasy at the minute, so that's why I wanted to try this and look at the cover with the foiling, and yeah, it's just really pretty, and that's why I wanted to own it. I don't think it's necessarily my cup of tea, but I might really enjoy it as well. Who knows? I bought another book in a series that I'm currently reading. This is Taken by Benedict Jacka. This is the Alex Vera series. I think I've only read the first book so far, and I have the second book sitting on a shelf already. But I bought the third one because I kind of know that I'm going to be reading the second one pretty soon. This is one that I picked up very randomly from Waterstones, and I really fell in love. It's another urban fantasy story set in London with lots of magic. Our main character is a wizard who runs a shop, but he's also like a representative of like wizards in London within this like world, and there's politics involved and enemies, and he's got a wind genie friend who carries him around the city. It's a good one, so I can't wait to read the rest. Again, this is a novel, like a book series that has been going for years, so I have some catching up to do. And then the book I've been trying to track down for like 5 months, ever since I've heard from it about this series. I've been wanting to read it. It's by Piper CJ. It's The Night and Its Moon. Again, a book that's sometimes categorized as YA, but I found it in the adult section of my local bookstore. It's about two children who are separated when they're very young, but then they want to find each other again. I like those. I kind of like that setting. Again, a book series I've heard very mixed reviews on. Some people disliked it, some of them loved it. I don't know how I'll feel, but the first book was nearly impossible to track down, which is why I've only bought it now. With this, I've definitely decided I'm going to read the first one and see how I feel, because I think we're already up to book 4 or 5 with this one. And if I don't like the writing style of the author, I'm not going to be having 5 books sitting on my shelf. So something to try to see if I like it. And finally, I bought the second book in this series by J. Kristoff. I've read several J. Kristoff books, and I like them. I like his writing style. And he's got a vampire series going on. The first one is I don't know, what's the first one? Empire of the Vampire, and now we have Empire of the Damned. The paperback was cheaper than the hardback was cheaper than the paperback, so that's why I now have a lovely, lovely looking paperback. And it was a lot cheaper here in the Netherlands online than it was in London. So I definitely had a wish list when I went to London, and while I was there, I didn't pick up anything from my wish list because either it was out of stock, or when I looked at the price, I knew I could get a better deal if I ordered it online. So when I got home, I ordered those books. Alright, so thank you so very much for watching this video today. Those are all the books I bought in the past couple of months. I'm definitely good for a good couple of months. I'll keep a wish list again like I did last time, and then maybe in the second half of the year I might be buying some more books. But right now, I just really want to read some of these things. I'm currently in the midst of finishing Jade Legacy. So I can't wait to finish that, so I can definitely get to some books that I can read a bit more speedily, because that's a slow burner and it takes me a couple of weeks, especially if it's 700 pages like this one is. So far, I don't know, I'm about 2/3 of the way in and I have no clue where it's going yet, so I can't say anything about it. So check back in a couple of weeks' time when I'll do like an update of what I've been reading then. And of course, you will probably see some of these books in there already as well. So stay tuned for more content about books, but I definitely will be back with some fashion content next week. So like stay tuned for that, and then I hope to see you in my next video. See you next week. Bye-bye.